Alright, so check this out. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you a complete penetration testing workflow using Kali Linux. We are going to go from zero knowledge about our target network to having full administrative access on a vulnerable system. This is the exact same process that ethical hackers and security professionals use to identify vulnerabilities before the bad guys do. Let me show you how powerful these tools really are when used responsibly. First things first, we need to understand our testing environment. I have got Kali Linux running with all the standard penetration testing tools installed. Our target today is a vulnerable lab machine at IP address 192.168.1.100. This is a completely isolated test environment, which is crucial because everything we are about to do would be illegal on systems you do not own. Always remember, only test systems you have explicit permission to test. Now, let me show you the first phase of any penetration test, which is reconnaissance and target discovery. We start by scanning the network to see what systems are alive and what services they are running. This is like knocking on doors to see who is home. Nmap is the gold standard tool for this, and it comes pre-installed on Kali. Watch as we discover our target and map out its attack surface. Perfect. There is our target at 192.168.1.100. Now we need to dig deeper and find out what services are running on this machine. This is where things get really interesting because each open port represents a potential entry point. We are going to do a comprehensive port scan to see what this system is offering to the network. The -SV flag tells Nmap to try to identify the specific versions of services running, which is critical for finding exploitable vulnerabilities. And boom, look at all those services. This target system is running a whole bunch of potentially vulnerable services. We have got FTP, SSH, Telnet, SMTP, HTTP, and SMB, all running with what appear to be older versions. Each one of these could be a way in, but some immediately stand out as high-priority targets. That FTP service version 2.3.4 and the Apache 2.208 web server are both known to have serious vulnerabilities. This is exactly what penetration testers look for. Now, let me show you how we research these potential vulnerabilities. We are going to use searchsploit, which is a command line tool that searches the exploit database for known exploits. This database contains thousands of publicly disclosed vulnerabilities and their corresponding exploit code. Watch as we search for exploits that match the services we just discovered. This is where the real magic happens in penetration testing. Jackpot. There is a backdoor command execution exploit for exactly the version of VSFTPD we found. This is a famous vulnerability where the FTP server was compromised during distribution and contains a hidden backdoor that allows remote command execution. But instead of using the raw exploit, let me show you how professional penetration testers handle this using Metasploit framework. Metasploit is the Swiss Army knife of penetration testing, and it makes exploitation much more reliable and organized. Welcome to Metasploit. This framework contains thousands of exploits, payloads, and auxiliary modules all organized in a consistent interface. Now we need to find the exploit module for that VSFTPD backdoor we identified. The search function in Metasploit is incredibly powerful and will help us locate exactly what we need. Once we find it, we can configure it with our target information and launch the attack in a controlled, professional manner. Perfect. There is our exploit module. Notice that Metasploit rates this as excellent reliability, which means it is very likely to work without crashing the target system. Now, we need to select this module and configure it with our target IP address. The use command loads the exploit, and then we can set the required parameters. This systematic approach is what separates professional penetration testing from random script kiddie attacks. Now, we are inside the exploit module. Let me show you the options we need to configure. The Show Options command displays all the parameters this exploit needs, including which ones are required and which have default values. For this particular exploit, we mainly need to set the roasts parameter, which tells Metasploit which system to target. This modular approach makes Metasploit incredibly flexible and powerful for penetration testing engagements. All right, so we need to set the roasts parameter to point at our target system. The R port is already configured correctly for port 21, which is the standard FTP port. Setting roasts to our target IP address tells Metasploit exactly where to send the exploit. This is the moment of truth where we go from reconnaissance to active exploitation. Remember, we are only doing this because we have permission to test this system in our controlled lab environment. Now, for the moment we have all been building up to. The exploit command launches the attack against our target. Watch what happens when we execute this. The exploit will connect to the FTP service, trigger the backdoor by sending a specially crafted username, and if everything works correctly, we should get a command shell on the target system. This is the holy grail of penetration testing, getting that initial foothold on the target network. And there we have it. Look at that output. Metasploit successfully triggered the backdoor and we now have a command shell session on the target system. Notice that it says UID 0, GID 0, which means we have root privileges. That is complete administrative access to this machine. The exploit worked perfectly and opened a shell on port 6200. This is what successful penetration testing looks like. We have gone from external reconnaissance to complete system compromise. Now, let me demonstrate that we actually have control of this system. I'm going to interact with our shell session and run some basic commands to prove we have access. The ID command will show us our current privileges, and HOAMI confirms we are running as root. This is the evidence that penetration testers document to prove that the vulnerability is real and exploitable. Having root access means we can do absolutely anything on this system. Perfect. We are now interacting directly with the compromised system. Let me run a few commands to demonstrate our access level. These commands prove that our exploit was successful and that we have the highest level of privileges on this machine. In a real penetration test, this is where we would start gathering sensitive information, looking for ways to maintain persistence, or pivoting to other systems on the network. The possibilities are endless when you have root access. Now, let me show you some typical post-exploitation activities that penetration testers perform to demonstrate the impact of the compromise. We can read sensitive files like the shadow file, which contains password hashes, check what other users are on the system, and even look for additional vulnerabilities. This phase is crucial because it shows the real business impact of the security flaw. Organizations need to understand what an attacker could actually accomplish with this level of access. Let me also check what network connections this system has and what other services might be running internally. This is called lateral movement reconnaissance, where we use our compromised system as a stepping stone to discover more targets. The netstat command shows us active network connections and listening services. Often, internal services are running that are not accessible from the outside, but now that we are inside the network, we can reach them. All right. Now, it is time to clean up and exit our session properly. In a real penetration test, you would document everything you found, create a comprehensive report, and work with the organization to remediate the vulnerabilities. The background command puts our shell session in the background so we can return to the Metasploit console. Proper cleanup is important because leaving sessions open or making unnecessary changes can impact the target system. And we are back to the Metasploit console. Let me show you how to properly close out your sessions and exit the framework. The sessions command with the -K flag terminates any remaining active sessions, and then we can exit Metasploit completely. This kind of systematic approach to testing and cleanup is what separates professional ethical hacking from malicious attacks. Real penetration testers are methodical, document everything, and always clean up after themselves. So there you have it. A complete penetration testing workflow from start to finish. We discovered our target through network scanning, identified vulnerable services, researched appropriate exploits, and successfully gained administrative access to the system. This is exactly how ethical hackers help organizations identify and fix security vulnerabilities before malicious attackers can exploit them. Remember, these techniques should only ever be used on systems you own or have explicit written permission to test.